Namaste, my dear friends. Today I want to share with you an extraordinary journey that transformed not only my life, but also the lives of hundreds of people who crossed my path during my 25 years of spiritual dedication. Before becoming dedicated to spiritual studies, I was an ordinary man working at a bank in downtown Chicago. I lived what many would consider a normal life, waking up early, taking 3 different buses to work, spending the entire day dealing with numbers, targets, and the growing anxiety that seemed to consume my soul. It was in 1998, during a deep financial and existential crisis, that the universe conspired to introduce me to the ancient knowledge I now share with you. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was sitting in my small living room looking at the overdue bills scattered across the table when my neighbor, Mrs. Sarah Thompson, an 82-year-old lady who had lived for decades in a monastery in Tibet, knocked on my door. She looked at my tired face and said, "Son, you need to learn the secrets of the ancient masters about prosperity." At that moment, I had no idea how those words would completely change my destiny. Mrs. Thompson began teaching me about the deep connection between our vital energy and material abundance. She explained that the ancient Eastern masters understood that prosperity wasn't just a matter of luck or hard work, but rather a natural flow of energy that could be cultivated through specific practices. The first ritual she taught me was precisely the cinnamon and alcohol ritual, a practice that dates back to immemorial times when Silk Road merchants carried small vials containing this sacred mixture to attract prosperity on their journeys. I remember the day I performed the ritual for the first time. It was a waxing moon night, and Mrs. Thompson had guided me through every detail. With trembling hands, I prepared the glass vial that I had meticulously cleaned. The aroma of cinnamon filled my small apartment while I followed each step with devotion and hope. In the weeks following the ritual, I began to notice subtle changes in my life. First, it was a bank client who specifically sought me out to make a substantial investment, generating an unexpected commission. Then I received an invitation to teach financial education at a community project, something that opened doors I never imagined. But the most important aspect wasn't the immediate material gains. It was the transformation in my way of seeing abundance. Mrs. Thompson taught me that money is just one of many forms of energy flowing in the universe, and our relationship with it directly reflects our relationship with life. As months passed, Mrs. Thompson began revealing deeper secrets about prosperity. She explained that ancient Buddhist masters saw no contradiction between the pursuit of spiritual enlightenment and material well-being. Money, she would say with her serene smile, is like river water. It's neither good nor bad, it simply flows where it finds passage. One particularly memorable afternoon, while we prepared a new vial of the cinnamon ritual together, she told me about her own journey. Born into a humble family in rural Montana, she had met a Tibetan monk during a craft fair in her town. "You know, my son," she said while carefully breaking the cinnamon sticks, "the monks I met were some of the most prosperous beings I've ever encountered, not in terms of material possessions, but in their ability to manifest exactly what they needed at the precise moment." It was then that she taught me about the concept of financial karma, something that would completely change my understanding of money. This encounter led her on a 15-year journey through the monasteries of Tibet and Nepal. According to her, every thought, word, or action related to money creates a specific energy that returns to us multiplied. I began applying these teachings in my daily life at the bank. Instead of seeing each client as a potential target to be met, I genuinely became interested in their financial needs and dreams. The result was surprising. In less than 6 months, I became the manager with the highest client satisfaction in the branch. One of the most striking stories I witnessed was that of Mrs. Betty Williams, a lady who sold homemade pies outside the bank. After telling me about her financial difficulties, I taught her the cinnamon ritual. I guided her through every detail, how to clean the vial with running water while visualizing her debts being washed away, how to position the container facing the entrance of her small shop, and most importantly, how to maintain the proper mental state during the process. 3 months later, Mrs. Williams had not only paid off her debts, but secured a contract to supply pies to 3 local schools. "John," she told me with tears in her eyes, "it wasn't just the money that changed. It's as if something inside me had transformed. Now, I wake up every day with a greater purpose. Mrs. Thompson explained that this was the true power of the ritual, not just attracting material prosperity, but awakening in us the consciousness of our own manifestation capacity. The ritual, she would say, is just a starting point. The real miracle happens when we understand that we are natural channels of abundance. Over time, I began to notice an interesting pattern in people who performed the cinnamon ritual with true dedication. It wasn't just their external circumstances that changed. There was a profound transformation in their personal energy, in their way of relating to the world. I especially remember the case of Michael, a young programmer I met during a lecture I started giving about conscious prosperity. He was on the verge of bankruptcy, having invested all his savings in an app that hadn't taken off. His eyes carried that same desperation I knew so well from my times of crisis. After teaching him the ritual, I emphasized an aspect that Mrs. Thompson always stressed: the importance of gratitude during the process. Before performing the ritual, I guided him: spend 5 minutes thanking for everything you already have, even if it seems little at this moment. Michael followed the instructions to the letter. Every morning before preparing his ritual, he dedicated a few minutes to give thanks for his computer, for his programming knowledge, for the health that allowed him to work. The transformation began subtly. 2 weeks after starting the practice, he had a completely new idea for his app while meditating. Instead of focusing solely on technical features, he realized he could create something that really helped people, a system that facilitated donations to social projects. This shift in perspective, from a purely financial focus to a greater purpose, was the catalyst for his transformation. In 3 months, his app was noticed by a major tech company, which not only bought the idea, but hired him as a senior developer. Mrs. Thompson smiled when I told her this story. "See, my son," she said, "the cinnamon ritual is like a key that opens the door to abundance, but the true treasure lies in the transformation of consciousness." It was during this time that she taught me about the 3 levels of prosperity, knowledge that Tibetan monks had preserved for generations. Material prosperity, the most basic level, related to physical needs and material comfort. Energetic prosperity, the flow of vitality, creativity, and opportunities in our life. Spiritual prosperity, the ability to find meaning and purpose in everything we do. The cinnamon ritual, she explained, works simultaneously on these 3 levels. The cinnamon aroma activates our energetic centers of abundance, the alcohol purifies stagnant energies, and the conscious act of preparing the ritual connects us with our spiritual essence. One of the most impressive stories I witnessed was that of Rachel, a visual artist who lived in constant financial anxiety. After learning the ritual, she began to notice that her paintings changed. The colors became more vibrant, the themes deeper. It was as if the ritual had unlocked not only her prosperity channel, but also her creative expression. As my understanding of the ritual and its effects deepened, Mrs. Thompson began revealing more subtle aspects of the practice. The cinnamon ritual, she explained, is like a bridge between the material and spiritual worlds. Each time you perform it with full consciousness, you strengthen that connection. One afternoon, while preparing a new vial together, she taught me about the power of numbers in the ritual. The number 8, used in the 8 clockwise turns during mixing, wasn't chosen randomly. In Eastern numerology, 8 represents infinity standing up, symbolizing the constant flow between giving and receiving. It was during this time that I met Emily, a nurse who worked in 2 hospitals to support her 3 children. When I met her, she was about to give up on her dream of opening an alternative care clinic. Her hands trembled while holding the glass vial during our first guidance session. "The secret," I explained to her, repeating Mrs. Thompson's words, "isn't just in the physical ingredients, but in the energy you put into each movement, each intention." Emily began performing the ritual every night after her shifts. She told me she transformed this moment into a sacred ritual of self-care. While preparing the mixture, she visualized her future clinic, saw patients being treated with love and dedication, felt the satisfaction of uniting her vocation with prosperity. In less than 2 months, something extraordinary happened. One of her patients, impressed with her dedication and knowledge of integrative therapies, revealed himself as an investor interested in healthcare projects. Today, Emily's clinic is a reference in alternative treatments, serving hundreds of people monthly. But not all transformation stories involved major external changes. David, a university professor, sought me out after hearing about the ritual. His issue wasn't lack of money, he had a good salary, but a constant feeling of scarcity and fear of losing everything. Mrs. Thompson, upon hearing about his case, shared a profound teaching. True prosperity isn't about how much you have, but your relationship with what you have. Many are poor amid wealth because their soul is closed to abundance. For David, the ritual served as a tool for emotional healing. Each day, while preparing his vial, he consciously worked on his fears and limitations. The cinnamon aroma became a trigger for more positive and abundant mental states. One of the most fascinating aspects I learned from Mrs. Thompson was about the importance of the proper timing for performing the ritual. Just as farmers respect the moon phases for planting, she would say, we must observe natural cycles for our spiritual practices. She taught me that the ritual has special power when initiated during the waxing moon, as this is the natural period of expansion and growth. However, she always emphasized that more important than the astronomical moment was the state of mind of the person performing the ritual. One of the deepest lessons I learned from Mrs. Thompson came on a rainy Sunday morning. I had arrived at her house particularly worried about a friend who, even while performing the ritual, wasn't seeing results. "My son," she said while preparing jasmine tea, "sometimes the deepest blockages aren't in the ritual itself, but in the beliefs we carry within. Each person has their own time of blooming." It was then that she revealed a crucial aspect of the ritual that I hadn't fully understood yet. Taking a new glass vial, she began showing me how the preparation of the container itself was a metaphor for our life. "See," she explained, "before we begin the ritual, we need to clean the vial completely, not just with water, but with the intention of removing all stagnant energies. Similarly, we need to clean our mind of limiting beliefs about money and abundance." This conversation reminded me of Rebecca, a merchant I met in one of my workshops. She performed the ritual religiously, but maintained a pattern of negative thoughts about money, constantly repeating phrases like, "Money is dirty," or "Wealth brings problems." We worked together for several weeks, not just on the physical ritual, but mainly on transforming her limiting beliefs. Mrs. Thompson taught us a complementary practice. During the ritual preparation, Rebecca should write all her negative beliefs about money on paper, safely burn it, and mix the ashes with coarse salt, discarding everything in running water. Rebecca's transformation was remarkable. As her limiting beliefs dissolved, her small business began to prosper. More than that, her relationship with money became lighter, more fluid. Mrs. Thompson also emphasized the importance of breathing during the ritual. Each time you inhale, she taught, visualize yourself receiving abundance. Each time you exhale, imagine yourself sharing your blessings with the world. This practice of conscious breathing during the ritual brought surprising results for Marcus, a craftsman who lived in constant financial anxiety. By incorporating conscious breathing into the ritual, he noticed that not only did his relationship with money improve, but his own art transformed. "It's as if my hands were more connected to my heart," he told me once, showing his new pieces, which began attracting buyers from across the country. Mrs. Thompson smiled upon hearing about Marcus. "See," she said, "when we open our prosperity channel, it's not just money that flows, it's the very life force of the universe manifesting through us." Over the years, I began to notice an interesting pattern among those who practiced the ritual with true dedication. It wasn't just financial prosperity that increased, there was a holistic transformation in their lives. I especially remember Catherine, a psychologist who initially sought the ritual to resolve her debts. During our conversations, Mrs. Thompson taught her about the concept of integrated prosperity, the idea that true abundance should flow in all areas of life. Money, Mrs. Thompson would say, is just one of many forms of energy the universe uses to nurture us. When we consciously open the channel for financial prosperity, all other forms of abundance naturally begin to flow. To demonstrate this principle, she taught us a special variation of the ritual. Besides the main vial with cinnamon and alcohol, Catherine was guided to prepare 3 smaller vials, one with rose petals and cinnamon, for prosperity in relationships, another with bay leaves and cinnamon for career prosperity, and a third with quartz crystal and cinnamon. For spiritual prosperity, the results were surprising. In 6 months, not only had her financial situation significantly improved, but she also found her life partner, expanded her clinic, and developed a deeper connection with her spirituality. It was during this time that Mrs. Thompson revealed one of the deepest aspects of the ritual, the importance of sound. Each time you stir the mixture, she explained, the tinkling of the glass creates a specific vibration that harmonizes the energies around. She then taught me to incorporate mantras into the ritual. The most powerful one, according to her, was Om Shri Mahalakshmiye Namaha, a mantra dedicated to the Hindu goddess of prosperity. However, she always emphasized that what mattered most wasn't the language of the practice, but the intention behind it. This discovery was particularly significant for James, a musician who struggled to make a living from his art. By incorporating the sound element into the ritual, combining the mantras with his own compositions, he experienced a remarkable transformation in his career. "It's as if the music now comes from a deeper place," he told me in one of our meetings. His new compositions began attracting the attention of important producers, and in less than a year, he was living comfortably from his art. Mrs. Thompson explained that this was a perfect example of how the ritual worked on multiple levels. When we align our spiritual practice with our natural gifts, we create a resonance field that attracts abundance in unexpected ways. One of the most striking experiences I had was when Mrs. Thompson taught me about what she called the circle of collective prosperity. It was a fascinating concept that completely transformed my understanding of abundance. When we perform the ritual thinking only of ourselves, she explained while preparing a new vial, we limit its power. But when we expand our intention to include everyone's well-being, we create a wave of prosperity that returns multiplied. That's how our first collective practice group was born. We started with 7 people, each with their own vial, meeting on waxing moon nights in Mrs. Thompson's small garden. Among them was Lisa, a street vendor who could barely support her 2 children. The secret, Mrs. Thompson taught us, lies in visualizing not just your own prosperity, but seeing each person in the group prospering too. It's like creating a golden web of abundance that connects all participants. During these meetings, each person shared their intentions and dreams, while the whole group directed positive energy toward their realization. The cinnamon aroma filled the air as we performed the ritual in synchrony, turning our vials clockwise, creating an almost palpable energy in the environment. The results exceeded our expectations. Lisa, for example, received the opportunity to open a small store in a shopping center. Even more impressive was how she used her success to help other street vendors, creating a network of mutual support. Mrs. Thompson explained that this was the true purpose of the ritual. Prosperity is like a water spring. The more you share, the more it renews itself. It was during this time that she taught me about the 5 elements of lasting prosperity: active gratitude, not just giving thanks, but acting from gratitude; conscious circulation, keeping money in positive movement; higher purpose, aligning prosperity with a greater good; wise detachment, trusting in the natural flow of abundance; strategic generosity, sharing in ways that multiply abundance. A particularly touching case was that of Mr. Robert, a 68-year-old gentleman who participated in our group. Retired and in debt, he initially saw the ritual as his last hope. During our meetings, he always arrived early to help organize the space, a natural demonstration of the first element, active gratitude. Mr. Robert's story deserves a special chapter in my learning journey. After 3 months participating in our group, he began to notice subtle changes in his life. First, it was a former colleague who sought him out with a partnership proposal in a small appliance repair business. "The most interesting thing," he told me with sparkling eyes, "is that before I would have refused out of fear, but something in the ritual taught me to trust life more." Mrs. Thompson, upon hearing his account, shared with us a precious teaching about the relationship between age and prosperity. The universe doesn't care how old you are. Abundance flows to those who are open to receiving it, whether at 20 or 80 years old. It was then that she taught us a special variation of the ritual for people who felt it was too late to prosper. Besides the traditional ingredients, we added 3 drops of sandalwood essential oil to the vial. Sandalwood, she explained, is known in the Eastern tradition as the perfume of eternity. It helps us transcend the limitations of chronological time and connects us with sacred time where all possibilities exist. Mr. Roberts' business began to prosper in unexpected ways. His life experience, which he previously saw as a burden, became his greatest differential. Customers trusted his wisdom and honesty, and soon he needed to hire helpers. But the most significant transformation happened in his relationship with money. Before, he told us in one of our meetings, I saw money as an enemy, something I always lacked. Now I see it as a friend, a partner in making dreams come true. Mrs. Thompson used this moment to teach us about the concept of friendship with prosperity. According to her, many people treat money as a stranger or even an enemy, and then are surprised when it doesn't stay in their lives. You need to develop a loving relationship with prosperity, she would say. Just as you care for a precious friendship, you need to nurture your connection with abundance daily. To demonstrate this principle, she taught us to create a prosperity journal where we should daily record 3 manifestations of abundance we noticed in our life, an act of generosity we practiced, a growth opportunity we recognized, a blessing we shared with others. The Prosperity Journal became a powerful tool in our practice. One of the most impressive stories was that of Hannah, a visual artist who joined our group after going through a difficult divorce that left her in a precarious financial situation. When starting her journal, Hannah initially struggled to find manifestations of abundance in her life. All I see are bills and problems, she said in one of our first meetings. That's when Mrs. Thompson shared one of the most profound teachings I've ever received. My daughter, she said with that characteristic serenity, abundance is like the air we breathe. It's everywhere, but we only notice it when we pay attention. Start with the small blessings, the sun that rises every morning, the bird that sings at your window, the colors you can see and use in your paintings. Hannah began incorporating this perspective not only in her journal, but also in her art. Her paintings, previously dark and heavy, began to gain vibrant colors and themes connected to nature's abundance. She began painting flowers, waterfalls, golden wheat fields, everything that represented natural prosperity. Curiously, it was through this change in her art that her material prosperity began to flow. A gallery owner, impressed with her new artistic phase, offered her a solo exhibition. Thompson used this example to teach us about what she called the creative manifestation cycle, recognition of abundance already present, active gratitude for that abundance, creative expression of that gratitude, sharing that expression with the world, receiving new abundance. It's an infinite cycle, she explained. Each time we complete a turn, we make room for more prosperity to flow. It was during this time that she taught us a special variation of the cinnamon ritual, specific for artists and creators. In less than 6 months, Hannah had not only paid off her debts, but was managing to live comfortably from her art. Besides the traditional ingredients, we added a small amount of bergamot essence to the vial. Bergamot, she explained, is known as the oil of self-expression. It helps unblock our creative channels and allows our inner abundance to manifest in unique and personal ways. The lesson about creativity and prosperity gained an even deeper dimension when Mrs. Thompson introduced us to the concept of multidimensional abundance. According to her, there were 7 different dimensions of prosperity that needed to be in harmony. Imagine, she would say while lighting a sandalwood incense in our weekly meeting, that prosperity is like a garden. Having just one type of flower isn't enough. True abundance is like a diverse garden where each element contributes to the beauty of the whole. The 7 dimensions she taught us were material prosperity, financial resources, vital prosperity, health and energy, emotional prosperity, relationships, mental prosperity, knowledge, creative prosperity, expression, spiritual prosperity, connection, social prosperity, contribution to the world. To work with these 7 dimensions, she taught us a special variation of the ritual. Instead of a single vial, we prepared 7 small vials, each with a specific combination of ingredients. For material prosperity, traditional cinnamon and alcohol. For vitality, cinnamon with peppermint essence. For emotions, cinnamon with rose essence. For mind, cinnamon with rosemary essence. For creativity, cinnamon with bergamot. For spirituality, cinnamon with sandalwood. For social contribution, cinnamon with lavender. One of the most impressive stories from this time was that of Richard, a university professor who was facing a deep crisis in all areas of his life. After starting to work with the 7 vials, he began to notice significant changes. "It's as if each vial were a key opening a different door in my life," he told us in one of our meetings. "When I began taking care of all dimensions of prosperity, the transformations started happening naturally." In less than a year, Richard had not only received a promotion at his work, but had also published his first book, improved his family relationships, and started a social education project in his community. Mrs. Thompson explained that this was a perfect example of how true prosperity works. When we harmonize all dimensions of our life, we create an energetic field that attracts abundance naturally and sustainably. After years of learning and practice with Mrs. Thompson, I understood that the cinnamon ritual was just the gateway to a much deeper wisdom about the true nature of prosperity. In our last meeting together, before she departed for a long journey back to Tibet, she shared with us what she considered to be the essence of all her teachings. "My dear ones," she said with that serene smile that always lit up her face, "the greatest secret of prosperity isn't in the rituals, herbs, or prayers. It's in understanding that we are all natural channels of abundance. The universe wants to flow through us. We just need to stay open and aligned with that flow." Today, 25 years after my first encounter with Mrs. Thompson, I continue sharing these teachings with people from all over America. The group that started with 7 people in her garden has now impacted thousands of lives. The cinnamon ritual continues to be a powerful tool for transformation, but now I see it as she always described it, a portal to awaken our consciousness of natural abundance. Each vial prepared with intention, each mantra recited with faith, each gesture of generosity shared, all of this is part of a sacred dance with the energy of prosperity. Mrs. Thompson's last words before her departure still echo in my ears. "Remember always, my son, that true prosperity isn't something we achieve, but something we become. When we become prosperous in essence, everything around us naturally flourishes." And so I continue my journey, sharing these practices and teachings, always honoring the wisdom of this extraordinary teacher who changed not only my life, but the lives of so many people through this ancestral knowledge. The cinnamon ritual, more than a prosperity practice, has become a symbol of transformation and spiritual awakening. Each time I smell cinnamon, I remember that true wealth lies in our capacity to be channels of blessings for the world. And for those who wish to begin their own prosperity journey, remember, the first step isn't preparing the ritual, but preparing your heart to receive and share the infinite blessings that the universe has to offer. As Mrs. Thompson always said, prosperity is our natural state. We just need to remember that.